Good morning, Ilias. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation to be at this Borzen conference. I know that you work on the twin transition, digital and green twin transition. So can you explain us maybe what is all about and does this mean for the local authorities who are mainly with us today?
Sure. So happy to be here. First of all, what is the green transition? People normally associate green transition with reducing emissions, but it's much more than that. And because what we have experienced in the summer, and I lived for 10 days in 40+ degrees and then floods and fires, all the emissions is just a little part of the green transition. We deal with triple crises: climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. So green transition is all about these three, and these three matter to us at the local setting because it's about our health, it's about our economy, it's about our livelihoods. So it is really important that we master that. And the green transition is now more about adaptation. So let's adapt to heat waves, let's adapt to floods that will happen again, let's adapt to extreme weather events. And that is very important for local authorities to how do we plan in coordination with national authorities, of course. Now, the digital transition is a little bit different. It's there for 30 years, it's happening. We all experience, especially if you have young kids, you see it. And there are mixed feelings about that. But digital transition traditionally has very little to do with the environmental issues. So for 30 years, it cared about economy. That was the most important thing. So let's make efficiency gains. Digital transformation was about economy and some kind of sometimes social issues such as e-government, e-health, and other things. But environment was not much there. So the green digital transition is about the twinning. How do we make digital transition to help the environmental issues, the triple crises? But also, how can the triple crisis and the green transition also give a direction and purpose and help with sustainable finance, the digital transition? So there is this twinning. Now, energy transition is the big pillar of the green transition. It's very important aspect of it, but it's not everything. If I had to say one thing, the bigger part of the green transition, the more important part, and the problem that we face is the non-circularity of our economy. The way we consume, the way we actually run the economy that uses natural resources to make money. So more quantities I sell, more money I make. That is a bigger problem than just the energy, because even if we are on 100% energy, all of us, all of Europe, that is not enough to get the green transition going. So green and digital transition for local authorities is something that they have to instantiate and make sense locally, because nationally, the green transition and the digital transition are done by different administrations. They lived for the last 30 years in a different environment and different planets almost. But locally, those two have to make sense. And not only those two, because there are many other transitions, the demographic one, the pandemics, the security, and you name it. There is a lot of things that local authorities have to really make sense of at the local setting. And the digital has not yet been understood because it has a power. It has a great power. While digitalization is responsible and it's polluting, and data centers, of course, have a big electricity consumption, and the telecoms, overall, the digital world consumes about 9% of total electricity. So it's huge, and it's growing very fast. The e-waste, what we throw away, our laptops, iPads, mobile phones, the equipment, it's the fastest growing waste category. So we have a problem. Total emissions due to digital world are 3%, so it's not yet the top level of the other culprits and big issues like transport and buildings and agriculture, but it's growing. So that's one part. But the potential of using digitalization is to actually reduce by 15 or by 20% digital emissions, but we don't know how to use it. So the main point of today is to tell you that that potential is there. It's not realized, but it's not simple, because just digitalizing will not do it.
Thank you very much. So I understand it is really important to do this twin digital and green transition. But Ilias, how can we avoid digitalization efforts to be negative? So how can we make them positive?
Right. And that is the biggest question. Because so far, as I said, for 30 years, digitalization was there for economic sufficiency gains, but it was making those gains on the expense of the environment. Now, how do we do triple win? Because sustainability, recall, sustainability has three dimensions: economic, social, and environmental. So how do we put digitalization to serve all three dimensions, or at least not to do the harm to some of those three while progressing on the other one? At the moment, until today, there was not really clear understanding. If I digitalize my building, if I digitalize my agriculture, if I digitalize my transport, my energy network, how do I know that I made some progress on all these three? There were no metrics. We only hoped and we assumed, and a lot of things went wrong, because the digitalization at the end, with the rebound effects, created maybe some negative effects that we didn't expect. So there is a way, and there are methodologies, and there are metrics that we are developing with 40 biggest IT companies under European initiative that was launched by Commissioner Breton, called Green Digital Coalition, one word, .eu. And you will see the use cases we analyze. For example, the building. So for local authorities, a big chunk of kind of expenses and worries are local transport, local buildings, waste, and probably also something around the energy consumption at the local setting. But the energy distribution is normally in the hands of companies, because that's beyond the local authorities. So buildings with a very small and tiny automation, just of the thermometer of the cooling and heating system, you can save 7% of energy in the building. If you do a little bit more sophisticated, building information system, you save 15%, and that's within a day or a week if it's a big public building, without even start touching the expensive and lengthy isolation of roofs, walls, windows, and the renovation of the buildings. So 15% is huge when it comes to all buildings. Smart city environment with the traffic lights and the kind of smarter way of distributing the traffic also has a big gains. Precision farming. So let me give you an example of what can go wrong. You can throw gadgets at farmers, especially because in Slovenia that you have a small lots, and in the mountainous areas, you can just give every farmer money to buy a very expensive kind of smart agricultural equipment to hook up with their tractors, meteorological stations, laptop and sensors for the field, and drones for them to spray. You can throw a lot of money, but you can that way most probably do a more damage to the environment, because all that equipment become very soon waste, because farmers don't know how to use it properly. And they get angry because a lot of money is spent on gadgets while they have bigger problems and they struggle with their livelihood. So you can just throw around equipment, or you can do it much more smart to talk to companies that are selling pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers, for them to become digital and offer services to farmers. So they actually are smarter, using their own drones for a bigger, more than one field, and offer services minimizing the pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers, and making healthier soil, healthier food, and profitable business and managed expenses for farmers. So there are good digitalization and there are bad digitalization. And unless we know how to count the environmental impact of digitalization, we may fall in the wrong direction, how to digitalize.
Okay, thank you very much. So one last question. The President of European Commission last week in her State of the Union speech mentioned that green transition should be also an opportunity. You have mentioned some of the sectors. So now this is a tough question. So which sectors do you believe can benefit of this twin transition? So digital, I said green transition, but also digital.
I think that all sectors can benefit, but it all depends on the business models. But the sectors that are the most mature, those that already understand, and the triple win is quite clear, is the energy sector and the first ones. We already started. We have something called digitalization of energy system action plan, and we have very specific actions that we would like to proceed. So distribution of energy, you can, with the smart sensors and Internet of Things devices, you can actually stop leakages. It's like water pumps, water distribution. There's a lot of leakage in the pipes. Same is with electricity. So even 1% of total energy being saved through leakages is already huge gains. It's hundreds of millions of euros at national scale. Leakages, better distribution and integration of production by centralized, energy production, and the roofs and the rooftops and solar and wind power. So how do you balance the peaks? So there is a lot in the energy sector. Consumers can see what they consume and how to distribute better their consumption. So smart meters, it's a lot already happening on the consumption side. Information to people when they should use what kind of device to be charged, car, and when to use washing machines and all that is now already automated and can be automated. So it's up to a national or local setting how to promote this. Another one is transport and the connected mobility, the precision farming, but it's very tricky. Precision farming and healthcare, it's not as easy because you can do wrong things as well. But the most important things I leave for last. Digitalization, the biggest impact of digitalization can be to make our economy circular. How do we use tracking and tracing and information to keep whatever we use as product, as instrument, as whatever you're using in your work and home, everything to last longer, to be repairable, to be durable, to be designed better, to be used longer, because it's the waste, it's the fast fashion, it's the way we produce, consume, and throw away that is the biggest problem of the triple crisis. Remember, biodiversity loss, pollution is as important as climate change. And digitalization can make that circular economy to go faster and to actually happen. And it can be true for big products like washing machines and cars, but also as the small ones, like to fight the obsolescence of our mobile phones. If everybody could keep a mobile phone 1 year longer between now and 2030, that would be like million cars emissions. Just keep it 1 year longer. And for that, we push companies to make sure that it performs, it can be repaired.
Thank you very much, Ilias. Very inspiring on my mobile. I will take this with me, and on the circular economy, the conference will come back during the day. So thank you very much for being with us, and have a nice day in Brussels.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.